Hi guys, it's Horsey Steph, and today I'm back with another Horse Trainer Reacts to Heartland segment. I know this is still everyone's absolute favorite. Today we are going to be starting Season 1, Episode 4, so we're really chugging along through these episodes. I'm excited to see what happens and hopefully get another cool problem horse to kind of work through, because I really enjoyed Episode 3. If you guys could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe down below for future videos, that would help me out a lot. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in and watch this episode together. Amy is enjoying a nice gallop. I'm curious if these cows are Heartland's cows, because I didn't actually know they still operated as a working cattle ranch. That would be interesting to know whether they're rounding them up now or if this is something separate and Amy is just out on the same land trail riding essentially. This is being excessively harsh on his horse's mouth. I believe this is Amy's dad, and I want to say his name is Tim, but I'm just going to call him Amy's dad because I am not very confident on that name. He's really yanking for no reason and jerking on that horse's mouth when the horse is being very responsive, and he has a big curb bit in the horse's mouth which should work completely off the slack in the reins. There's absolutely no reason for him to be pulling like he is. It's interesting to me that Amy is riding on the same land that her father is running cattle on. I would think you would be running cattle primarily on private land and also riding primarily on private land, but it is possible this backs up to some sort of land that's protected under the Bureau of Land Management, and they do lease out land to allow cattle to graze, and you're also, I believe, able to ride on all of their land. So that could be what's happening, but I wouldn't have expected it. I thought Amy typically trail rode on their own acreage because they do have so many acres of property. Also, another side note, Amy is riding in extremely short stirrups for a Western saddle. This is very much what I do Western, and I laugh at myself doing it. I ride with jumping stirrups in a Western saddle, and that's what Amy is doing now. So you can see that she has more experience riding with this shorter stirrup, and the actor is probably much more comfortable in this shorter stirrup. To be more realistic, they should have dropped those stirrups because you really would never ride this short in a Western saddle. Even if you were doing something like cutting, it's too short even for that, and cutters do ride shorter than typical Western riders. Why would Amy gallop up to somebody running like that? Even her sister, like, that just seems excessively rude and actually quite dangerous. She did almost hit Lou, and that's because her horse did exactly what she had asked. What if he had just taken a second longer to slow or not stepped sideways as he slowed? I think that was reckless. Even when you're riding, you should be respectful of other people, especially when you're riding probably. You're on a 1,000-pound animal. You should not be galloping at people, especially behind them while they're listening to music, running, and they have no idea you're even there. Just so many things that could have gone wrong in that scenario. I wish when people stopped Western horses, and I see this a lot, so Amy is doing something fairly normal. I wish people wouldn't hold the reins so tight that the horse both stops and backs up without any kind of release on the rein, because you're kind of teaching the horse that pressure means back up, and they completely miss the stop, which I think is an important thing for a horse to know how to do, to stop and stand still. I don't always want that coupled with a backup. Sometimes I do, but I'd rather have those be two separate things, not stop back up as just one aid because you were too heavy with your hands. I think it would be really hard to clear out your mother's room after she passed away. I'm not surprised they've put this off. I think I would have a very hard time doing it. I mean, to be honest, I haven't even opened the box that I was sent after euthanizing my last horse. It is still sitting exactly as it shipped. I haven't been able to bring myself to do it, and it's been years at this point. So going through your mother's room, I think, would be just near impossible. But obviously, as any therapist will tell you, it is a healthy part of the grieving and healing process. So it is almost good that they're being forced to go through this room and prepare it for somebody. It really is a necessary part of letting go. Just holding on to everything is not healthy either, even though that's exactly what I've been doing. That would be a really tough thing to learn, that your dad didn't actually abandon you, that he wanted to come back and be part of their lives and have a family again. And yet the mom just wasn't able to forgive him and move on. I think it's easier to think that your dad walked out and never looked back than to realize that he walked out and 7 years ago tried to come back and your mom wouldn't let him. And so they have no relationship. Well, Lou does have a relationship with her dad, but Amy has no relationship with her dad purely because their mom wouldn't even tell her that he wanted a relationship with them. And that is really sad. And because the mother is now dead, you can't even talk to her about this or understand why she did that. So it would just leave you feeling really confused and like you missed out on something that could have helped you through this grieving process. If you'd had your dad in your life, at least you didn't lose your only parent. Oh my God, that is not how you teach somebody how to ride. I feel so bad for him. There's so many better ways to learn to ride that don't just involve hanging onto a saddle horn for dear life and bouncing around. You're not only probably getting extremely sore and uncomfortable yourself, but you're also ruining that poor horse's back. I'm not saying he's overweight by any means, but that is still a lot of weight to be bouncing around on a horse's back like that. I always teach my beginners how to post at the walk and then post at the trot, because posting is something you're gonna pick up much faster than sitting the trot if you don't have a horse with a nice quiet jog. If your horse jogs, which most Western horses do, you should first be teaching him to ride at the jog, which is fairly easy to sit, and then eventually move up to a real trot, which is bigger and harder to sit as he becomes more experienced. But I don't think it is ever necessary to have somebody just bouncing around in a round pen clinging onto a horn for dear life. It helps no one, and it certainly doesn't teach you how to ride. It just teaches you to be uncomfortable and stiff and kind of grit your teeth in discomfort, which you then have to unlearn to relax into the saddle and actually ride. Well, now they have him down to a jog, which is definitely a lot better. They could have just kept the horse at a jog to start with, but I think they wanted to show us how bad a rider he is. And he is starting to relax his hip and sink back. So you can tell that the actor does actually have some skill riding. He was purposefully getting really stiff and bouncing on that horse's back to showcase that he couldn't ride. And now after that, a little initial bit, they've slowed the horse down. He's sitting deeper and actually doing a fairly good job of sitting this jog.
Words on the page. A lot harder to show up as you can't.
I think that was a little unfair of the grandfather to say that it's easy to write a letter yet hard to show up, because their father did show up at the open house and the grandfather turned him away. So I think that there's kind of a motive to what he was saying. He's trying to make sure that Lou stays distant from her dad because for whatever reason he doesn't like the dad and doesn't get along with the dad. I'm not sure why you would ever need to show up at some place you are going to be staying temporarily with a trailer that big. I mean, that is a full, massive living quarter trailer with, I think, 4 horse spots. Maybe it was 5. You don't need that to just haul, I assume he brought 1 horse, and stay with somebody. I mean, you're not going to stay in the living quarter trailer, so why did you bring it? Why not bring a 2 horse or something more appropriate to take 1 horse a short drive? And I know that they have to have more than one trailer because nobody just has a massive living quarter trailer. Everybody has a smaller trailer as well for more local, shorter hauls. It kind of seems to me like he wanted to show off by bringing this massive, expensive trailer.
How do you stop this thing?
How do you stop this thing? Wouldn't that be the first thing you would teach somebody when they get on a horse? I mean, literally the first thing I tell everyone is if you need to stop, pull back on the reins. And once the horse stops, make sure you release. I tell them that before I ever teach them how to walk forward, ask the horse to steer, anything else. And then we practice walking forward and stopping until I feel confident that in case of an emergency or whatever, they can stop the horse. Because if you can stop a horse, you'll probably be okay, especially on a beginner lesson horse. You don't really need to steer, you don't really need to be able to get the horse forward, but you need to be able to stop. To have Ty riding this horse that he can't stop, just jogging around in a round pen, like what is the plan? That he's gonna jog forever? You should clearly have taught him how to stop, especially if that horse started to go a little faster. What if that horse broke into a canter as he's bouncing around, probably kicking with his legs and flailing, and he had no idea how to even slow the horse down or rate him? This just seems like a terrible idea. I never would have imagined Ben owning such a small horse, and I'm not height biased. I personally really like a smaller horse. I feel like they're just a little more nimble, turn a little bit better. I love riding smaller horses. However, he is very tall, and on the show jumping circuit, it's very rare to see people with small horses. Everyone wants a big horse because they jump a little better. Well, they find it easier to jump the height because they are bigger themselves, right? If you're smaller, you have to work harder to jump big things. So it really surprises me he would have such a small horse. Being that he has lots of money, competes on the jumping circuit, I would think he'd have something big and fancy because that's what everyone wants. But again, no judgment. I like a smaller horse. This is a choice I would easily make for myself. My last couple horses I've bought, I've specifically looked for smaller horses, although my gelding now is massive, so didn't really work out for me. He definitely grew since I thought he was going to be smaller. Again, just not what I was expecting at all.
Some Valerian in his feet, just to help him settle down.
I don't understand why she wants to give this horse Valerium to drug him just to help him settle in. It seems totally unnecessary, and if your general policy is to drug everything that comes into your barn, I think you need to reevaluate your training system and also how you're asking horses to settle in. I don't think drugs actually help a horse settle in. Obviously, in extreme cases where they're extremely anxious and worried, drugs might help mitigate that, especially horses that have never traveled, never gone anywhere, have extreme anxiety in the situation. But for a horse that's a show horse, he travels all the time, he should be very able to come to this new barn and relax and settle in. This is a quiet atmosphere. It's not even as difficult as settling in at a show. So definitely don't understand why she wants to give him Valerium. I agree with Ben. He doesn't need the Valerium. I wouldn't do it. I think that drugging a horse is almost never the answer, especially a horse that shows no sign of needing it. I mean, he was sleeping in the cross ties. Why are you giving him Valerium? Why drug a horse just to drug a horse, which seems like what she's doing here.
Valerian's not a drug. It's one of the herbal remedies we use here.
Herbal remedies are still drugs, in my opinion. I don't buy her, oh, it's not a drug, it's an herbal remedy. But it still has a sedative effect. Therefore, you're still sedating a horse to help them settle in for no reason because they don't need help settling in. Again, still stands. Just because it's herbal doesn't mean it's not essentially drugging a horse. Anytime you use any kind of supplement, drug, etc., you are affecting the horse, or why are you giving it? Therefore, you need to think about why you're doing that. And I, in general, do not believe calming supplements should be used. Calming herbs, calming drugs, any of that unless you have a specific case where you need it temporarily. It should not be a go-to. It should not be something you do regularly, because you're not actually addressing the horse's needs. You're just covering up the symptoms of them being anxious and worried.
What makes you think Red's sensitive?
My mom taught me how to read a horse's face.
I would have the exact same reaction as Ben. Like, what makes you think my horse is sensitive? He looks really quiet, laid back, chill. I'm not saying he's not sensitive. My gelding London is a perfect example. He's very laid back, quiet, chill most of the time, but he is still sensitive. You can definitely be both. Again, sensitive horses don't need calming supplements. Horses that you might think to put on some sort of calming or sedative would be horses that are anxious. Sensitive and anxious, completely different things. London is sensitive, not anxious. This horse may be sensitive, definitely isn't anxious. So I would be thinking she's crazy too. I don't care what your mom taught you to read in a horse's face, because what you're saying doesn't match up with what I know about the horse, what I'm seeing right now from the horse, anything in reality. It's just coming out of your mouth. It seems like complete craziness. I don't really know how much I buy this whole looking at a horse's face structure to read their personality. I personally don't have any experience with it, so I can't really say much about it. The only thing I will say that you can tell from a horse's face, looking at its eye gives you a very good idea of how it is going to react, whether it's a little bit worried, tense, shut down, etc. How kind of present that horse is. You can tell all that from the eye. And then also looking at the levels of the eyes and the ears and the bone structure can give you some idea if the horse is not in alignment and therefore could be a little like off kilter. Whether that comes out as unbalanced or a little bit on edge for no reason, that could certainly be the case just because they're, not in alignment. Just like any other kind of issue of alignment in their bones can cause them to move and act differently, could cause extreme discomfort. Stuff like that you can see from the face, but this whole like looking at swirls and the shape of their eye, I don't know how much I buy that. Again, I don't know a lot about it, haven't studied it, so can't definitively say it doesn't work. I don't know. I'm on the firm not believing until I see very good proof of it camp.
Pushing will just make it worse.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I wouldn't have to push him.
I think pushing always makes a horse worse, so I don't think that's specific to this horse. And Ben is wrong. You never have to push a horse. If you're pushing a horse to meet a deadline, the deadline is not a fair deadline to the horse. So train the horse, take your time, then set up a show schedule. And when the horse is not able to fulfill that, back down on the show schedule, fix the training issues that might have come up, and go back to the showing. I don't think there is ever an acceptable answer that says, I'm going to fix the problem later. I don't have time to fix the problem now because I have back-to-back shows. It's a problem, especially an amateur has no business saying. Even professionals, though, they do this all the time. They put a Band-Aid on a problem because they don't have time to fix it. It's something I judge people for extremely harshly. If you don't have time to fix the problem, then you don't have time to show your horse. It's that simple. Cancel a show, fix the problem, put the horse first. If you're consistently putting the show over your horse, your ethics are backwards, your morals are backwards, and I'm sorry, it's not fair. It's not fair to the horse. It's just like somebody telling me, oh, you have shows back to back, so I don't care that you broke your arm. You still need to go do those shows and ride in those shows. Is that fair? Is anyone gonna look at that and say fair? What if I had a accident and got PTSD and wasn't able to ride as a result? Like, again, are you gonna tell me, well, suck it up, go do the show? No, nobody's gonna say that. So why is he saying this? Again, I have a huge problem with this. It really ruffles my feathers, makes me extremely upset. It is not a thing, not an excuse, and it needs to stop being normalized in the horse world. because everyone says it, everyone does it. Not fair. We are smarter than this. We should all be able to see past this at this point.
If you want to win, do what works.
No, if you want to win, you have to take the time to actually address your horse's mental, physical, and emotional well-being and train them in a way that addresses all those elements so that they can be their best self. I'm so happy we got a new project horse in this episode right at the beginning. So that's really exciting. I'm excited to see how Amy continues to approach Ben's horse Red. I'm assuming that's the new project horse. I guess I could be wrong because admittedly no one actually said that. I'm just assuming that, but I'm excited to get to know him more. I feel like Amy's very touch and go with her training. I hated her in episode 1 and 2, loved her in episode 3, and now I feel like she's just spewed malarkey this entire first part of episode 4. So I'm really intrigued to see how she approaches Red, how she continues to train, and whether we see more of the training we saw in episode 3, or if we're back to this like not really understanding the horse's emotional state and just shutting him down, making them do it, and being quite rough about it for absolutely no reason. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to check out the playlist in the description box down below, which has all of my Horse Trainer Reacts to Heartland videos. And also be sure to tune in every Tuesday and Friday at 5 p.m. where I will release a new Horse Trainer Reacts to Heartland. I hope you guys are having an amazing, wonderful day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.